Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webcast. Good to see a lot of old friends logging in, as well as some new ones as well. So, welcome everybody. This is what we call a flash class in a fast hour. We're gonna teach you about monetization of virtual events, which is a very hot topic in today's world. So with that being said, we're gonna get through as much as we can. Usually this workshop is a weekend workshop. It takes a couple of days, so we've jammed it all into 1 hour. We are recording, so you don't have to write down everything, but make sure you take notes that are relevant for yourself so that you can actually, benefit as much as possible from this. All right, so let's kick it into gear. So myself, many of you know who I am. Founder and CEO of Forward Progress. We're in our 17th year. Creator of Social Jack. If you've done any digital thought leadership with us, you've probably taken training sessions on there. Started at Merrill Lynch, and here I am today, about 30 years later. I'm just going to say about, because I don't want to date myself. But I think one of the most significant things is last year, this year, at some point, we hit about 5,000 webcasts and webinars. So we have a systematic approach that we're going to cover with you today, and we're excited to share a lot of this with you. We also have Jackson Delisle. Yes, the name is familiar. He's my son. He's our production manager here at Social Jack, trainer and coach for the past 8 years. You might have attended some workshops from him in Chicago, and maybe even online as well. He handles a lot of the video production, podcasts. He's also part of the Influence Factory podcast and has done over 1,000 productions himself. So, and if you're familiar with Second City, even though it's shut down, it's not out. He's a graduate from there as well. Say hey, Jackson.
Hey.
So Monica, she's our director of marketing, digital marketing here at Forward Progress. And she's also a content contributor at Social Jack. She comes to us, she lives in Manhattan, comes to us from the fashion industry, the branding industry. But whenever we're doing webinars, while Jackson and his team are producing those on the back end, Monica and her team are getting the word out all over. So when we get to the marketing segment of this, we'll bring Monica back on and kick her in. And she's a world traveler. So even though she lives in Manhattan, Monica, where are you at today?
I am in Boca, Florida.
Right. So you get around. So you have been all over the country, even during COVID. So I applaud you for traveling safe and staying healthy. So, and Leonard says hi. He's in the room and says, "Hey, Leonard, how you doing, buddy?" All right. So let's kick in. So I'll bring you two back on when we get to your segment, and then I'm going to rock and roll here. So like I said, there's a lot packed in here. So we're recording for you, but write lots of notes because everybody's at a different level of this journey that you're on. So with engaging here, many of you have already found it, but if you could find the questions box for GoToWebinar, we just want to maybe see where you're checking in from today. So just, type in what city you're checking in from so we know you can find that questions box. Let's see, here we go. All right, we have Chicago, we have New York, we have Florida, we have Canada, we have the UK, welcome. We have California is in the house, San Francisco, North Carolina, Quebec. Tony P in Chicago, how you doing, Tony? All right, cool. So like I said, some old friends and some new friends in the room. All right, so pay attention. So what we're going to do is, as part of this, we will be really rocking and rolling. But I just want to say that with virtual events, one of the things you want to think about is expect the unexpected. We're sharing bandwidth with everybody. My daughter's attending high school upstairs. I have other people in the house. Al's from Connecticut, by the way. We have other people in the house using the internet. My neighbors are working from home and there's kids attending school. So if you should have an issue, you can easily click on where it says computer audio. You can click on phone call and a number will pop up. Or you can say, help, I lost my audio. And Jackson or one of the crew members on the back end will send you a phone number to make sure that you have that number handy and you can dial in that way. So, and again, we are recording. So, but just keep in mind that anytime you're on a broadcast, anything can happen. We probably host on average about, what, Jackson, about 6,000 or 7,000 people a week currently on different webcasts.
Yeah, definitely
Yes.
around there.
Yeah, so sometimes we have to manage, thousands of people, and all of a sudden we're got people that are having issues. And remember, we can't control what's happening, and neither can you, but you can be prepared for it. So we'll talk about some of those things. But for this webcast, just make sure that if you have an issue, know that you can control the audio and the selection of audio. Okay. Also, I have a handout today. If you look in the handout section, we'll be referencing that handout, but that's our workflow process. So we're giving that to you, and we have some other cool things that we're giving to you along the way too. All right, let's kick it off. So many of you know, I don't know, many of you were around for my book launch, but a lot of the systems that we talk about, the business systems, we talk about in the book first, which is the Street Guide to Digital Business Influence. So if we think about the two companies, a lot of people get confused, but Social Jack is really about educating you, just like we're doing here, on building your influence in your industry. We call it digital thought leadership. So that's what I want you to hinge on today. What do why are you doing this? Why are you interested in this? Why are you even looking at broadcasting events? So, and then on the other side, we have services which help with building business influence, either from a marketing perspective, a content perspective. And really what we're doing is helping you activate your network. Because remember, if you work with others, you actually, things become easier. So we have this relevant content that most of you are already creating. It's just a lot of times you're not activating it. So we help build the people on the inside of the organization as thought leaders. We help accumulate the thought leaders that you have contact with on the outside. And we get them all to work together to push your content out and up for you. Thus, it creates new business. So it's actually a pretty simple formula, and it's very effective. We've been doing it for decades. And I'm not going to bore you with our systems. If you want to talk to us later about our business systems, we're very much about systems. And that's why I gave you the handout today, so that you could actually see, get a glimpse of the webinar process and the webinar system, okay, which we're going to talk about here. So let me do a quick poll. The screen is going to change color. And I just want to get a bead here, like, what's your level of experience with online events? So let's get everybody checking in here. The screen just turned blue. The poll is open. So we have a few experts on with us today. We have 57% so far that are moderate, 33, 40% novices. And good, nobody has done none. So I would think in this day and age, with the pandemic, we'd be in that. So, okay, so here I can share so everybody can see. So you can see 8%, we have experts in the audience, so interested on feedback from them. 58% moderate, 33% novice, and no nuns. How about that? That sounded funny, didn't it? All right, let's keep going. All right, quick agenda: state of the work environment, business influence, launching a webinar, process and guidance, okay? So we're gonna cover those 4 segments today. Let's talk a little bit because, and again, I don't wanna get too deep on this. I could talk an entire hour on this, but with many of us being in pandemic, and now, we're in the midst of not even knowing who the president is today. So again, I don't wanna get into everything on this. But with our business, the one certainty that we can have is, I always said, I've been around in business for over 35 years, been through many elections, many economic challenges. But one thing that I know is that I'm in control of my digital thought leadership. So you are in control of your digital thought leadership. So you can choose to wake up every day, and worry about things or the business, maybe your customers have shifted. Heck, maybe some of them are gone. But what you have to do is you always have to make shifts and adjustments. And as you do this, we find that now in today's world, broadcast media, webinars, webcasts, even though they've been around for a couple of decades, now is the new medium to really get that thought leadership and let your network know that you're the best one out there to do the job, that you are that thought leader. And maybe many of you have reinvented yourself or your entire business. Well, now it's time to let people know. And that's when we make a choice to actually put that voice out there and put it through. So we're going to show you how to do that a little bit with making these shifts and putting it out there. Okay. So let's just talk about business influence, and then we'll get into the webinar part. So there's a few reasons why we do this, right? So why do we work so hard in terms of getting ourselves out there? Well, I started in the reputation management business. So if we think about reputation, visibility, I want to create brand awareness. Many of you have attended our workshops on humanizing the brand, which is, again, taking those inside influencers, those advocates, and those outside influencers and elevating your brand. And that creates thought leadership. Well, ultimately what that does is it's generating referrals and new business. It always does. So real quick, when we think about looking to accomplish like your goals, I'm going to just put this out there, and you can click on multiple, but just what is it for you? It may be one thing. It may be many things. Is it for building visibility and credibility? Is it just to bottom line get some new business in the door? You can click on multiple. Is it to increase brand awareness? Or have you even thought about that? Maybe your brand has changed. Maybe some of your competitors have gone out of business and you're the survivor. And it's time to let everyone know that you exist. Is it to really accelerate the thought leadership and recognition that you deserve or that your organization deserves? Okay, good. So let's just see how people weighed in on this. So we have about a third of the audience build visibility and credibility. And this is a big deal because we want to build trust. In order to build trust, we need that credibility. And we talk about building a digital footprint, right? A digital footprint. I just wrote an article on this. So increase brand awareness. Love to see that. Boost referrals and new business. Who doesn't want that, right? 75% of you do. And 42% to accelerate your thought leadership. Become known and get found. Okay, so cool stuff. All right, so let's just talk about vehicles of digital influence. We talk about content, which is blogs, images, video, webcasts, podcasts, things that can be pushed out. Social media, although we all know by now that you have to pay to play in social media. So if you're going to push content out, you have to have the vehicle. And of course, email. We've always been a big proponent of email. Many of you are subscribers of us. We're up to about 80,000 subscribers. So thank you, subscribers. But that's something you have to make sure that if you're going to do any of this, make sure you're collecting email addresses. They're like gold. People have a choice every second to opt in, opt out. We're getting a lot of spam, a lot of junk. You don't want to be the junk or the spam. You want to be the valued one that everybody opts into. So please make that note. Take care of those emails. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with stats. Let's get into webinars. So just some common benefits of webinars and webcasts is, for the most part, they're cost effective. Now, in many cases, you can get into most of the platforms, and we'll actually send you, Jackson, make a note. We'll send them a copy of the webinar that we did that shows price comparison and feature comparison of platforms. I think people will like that. So let's get them a link to that as well. But if you think about it, you can, as long as you're connected. Now I have 2 wireless routers in here. I have a hardline router, and I'm still subject to what I call the COVID network, with the networks going up and down and the platforms going up and down, and something could still happen. So as much as you prepare, you just want to make sure typically that you have a hard line or a network line. That's one of those blue network cables going to a connection. What's nice is that it increases opportunities. So at the very least, it creates great content. And again, most of these benefits you're aware of. I just want to make sure that you know, as you're doing this, you understand the benefits that you're doing it for, okay? So some common features that a lot of the platforms have. A lot of them have landing pages. That means you don't have to build a website or a landing page to register people. That's pretty cool. Streaming video like this. So I have the option to not be on video, right? So no video, I could just be delivering content, or I could be delivering content like what you see on the screen, and I could be delivering myself along with the content. Okay, so you have that option, and it depends on who you are, how you are, what kind of effect that you want to create with people. Illustrations and whiteboard, there's all kinds of capabilities to do that. Remote control, if you want to have people participate with you in a collaborative event, you could have people come in and actually do some of that remote control. Chat questions. So, you know, for example, I've been doing the polling questions. I'm collecting information about you, from you while we're in this, okay? So you want to make sure you're always conscious of collecting data. Also, questions. You want to keep your audience engaged. So I notice Karen, Al King, I notice Anthony's in here, I notice Len's in here, Adrian's in here, Michael, Scott. A lot of people are engaging with us, so we appreciate that. So that means we're in connection. We're not, you know, we're not actually looking for making sure that everyone, you know, is engaged, but as many people as possible are engaged. Now, when we do this, I can see that 67% of you right now are attentive. 29% of you are doing something else. So at least you're listening to me, so you're still here. So, but what's nice is with tools, and you know, depending on the platform, that's what I like about GoToWebinar, is we get a lot of really good indicators. Zoom is a good platform, it's low cost, it just doesn't have the robust reporting and some of the other business metrics inside. So what's cool about that is we can actually see. So what's nice is I can actually see, like I said, 65% of you are actually attentive, you're here with me, and you're looking. So now all of a sudden, we have 35% of you that are probably checking emails or you're multitasking. And Roger says, questions are the key to success in webinars. Yeah, webinars, have a conversation. Okay, so who's with me so far? So let me just see who's with me so far. Give me a quick yes. Just see if I got you with me. I know I have, oh, look at that. So now it just jumped to 90%. So you see the effect in that? 90% of you just shifted in attentiveness, and 15% of you are still multitasking. So Anthony's like, keep going. And thanks, Glenn. Good to see you out there too, and Michelle. All right, so there we have it. So now there's all kinds of decisions, right? We can do webinars, we can do live stream, and again, you have all kinds of choices in live stream. All right, one of the things that we can't dig into too deep because I want to get into these 9 steps is afterwards you can create podcast. So what we can do is we can take what we're doing right here, and whether there's content on the screen or not, as long as it makes sense and people can still understand, you could have a podcast and you can have content that goes with the podcast. And that is super cool. Okay, so think about that. Could you leverage that? There's more people than ever that are not only watching, but listening. And if you have educational content or something to teach, you can take what you're doing, convert it to a podcast, and start publishing that way. Another low-cost vehicle for content and building an audience. So just write that down if it applies to you. And don't freak out. Remember, I could lose my camera. I could lose my connection. Right? I just simulated dropping my connection. Actually, yesterday in a webinar, wait, no, it was yesterday. No, it was Monday. Jackson, we had one of our presenters who lost audio for about 30 seconds, 40 seconds. It seemed like an eternity. And what we tell them is we just say, don't panic. So then we came back on and we said, just let the audience, all of a sudden the audience is typing in. We had about 3,000 people. They're typing in, we lost the audio. So we jump in, we had somebody standing by, we jumped in and said, we're having some technical difficulties, we'll be back within 60 seconds. We lost one person out of 3,000 because we didn't freak out. We made sure that we communicated with the audience. We got the speaker back dialed in. We even had a backup person standing by ready to deliver some of that content if he couldn't get back right away. So again, having a contingency plan, but most importantly, don't freak out. Okay? So what's the key of the day? Don't freak out. Because you're live, you know, it's a little tough sometimes. All right, let's go through the 9 steps. I know this is tiny if you're on a small screen or if you're on mobile. And I forgot to tell you, if you're on mobile, you can swipe left to see the content and swipe right to see me, but you don't need to see me. So swipe left and you'll be able to see the content. All right, and this is the handout that I had in the handout section. So if you arrive late in the GoToWebinar handout section, you can download this, these 9 steps. All right, let's jump in. Pre-marketing. All right, so first and foremost, have a plan, right? Really set up a timetable and make sure that you understand when you're doing your webinar and back into the marketing and the production elements. Think about the platform. Is this a webcast or a webinar? Are you going to show faces or are you not going to show faces? It's your choice. What are you going to do? Faces, no faces. People, no people. Is it just going to be content? Okay. What functions do you need? What features do you need? What budget do you have? So, you know, a lot of times for a webinar, for the platform alone, you want to think about the production platform being around, for a good production platform, about $300 to $500. But again, you can get down to $100 if you don't have that many people. So for ours, we have a license where we can have 1,000 people. So we can have 1,000 people logged in simultaneously. We can register up to 10,000 people, but if we want to go higher, we have to upgrade. Sometimes you have to change platforms. So just keep in mind, depending on how many people you bring in. Ease of use. How many people are participating? Who's using the system? Is it easy to use? And then reporting. That's the #1 reason I still stick with GoToWebinar. We've yet to find data analytics that we can get to this extent. We still use Zoom. We have licenses for Zoom, Adobe Connect, GoToWebinar. But for these educational webcasts, I love GoToWebinar because of the reporting. Now, what marketing features do they have? Can you talk to your CRM? Is there import-export functions? Customized registration. Can you customize? Do you have questions that you can ask that are custom questions? Do you have the ability to collect and report on and export the results of polling questions? A lot of times those are for sales. Custom layout, right? Can you customize the layout? So if you can see here in the picture, we have American Family Production. This one was done on Adobe because we needed to fade cameras in and out and get really fancy with the production. That's going to cost you about $10,000 plus per year, about $1,000 a month minimum and up. Okay, that's a starting point depending on how many people you have. But with GoToWebinar and Zoom, you're at about $100 to $500 a month. So much different price point, but less capabilities. So what kind of custom layouts? Do you have sponsors involved? If you have sponsors, you now can get them to pay for some of the production. Communication. How do you want to communicate with the audience? How do you want the system to communicate? Do you maybe have a CRM that communicates with people afterwards? Again, you want to map some of that out. And again, look at your reporting needs. So the second piece, develop the campaign. So this is part where Monica's team comes in and all of a sudden they're saying, okay, what do we have as a goal? What do we want to accomplish with this? Are we just remember you guys put in brand visibility and credibility, increase brand awareness, boost referrals and new business, accelerate thought leadership. If you checked all 4 of those, you have to make sure that this webinar that you're going to do accomplishes those goals. So what I like to do is actually put those up And every decision that we make on communication, messaging, the things that we put out, are we creating brand visibility and credibility? Are we pushing it out to the areas that are going to help us do that? Are we building a digital footprint? 58% of you said increase brand awareness. Are we helping people be aware of who we are with our brand? So it's not just the people in the webinar, but are we elevating the brand? Are we mixing the conversation enough? 75% boost referrals and new business. Are we accomplishing that? Will the people in the webinar choose to do business with us, and have we asked for the business? Have we set up a close, an offer to make them move forward or to help guide them into moving forward? And then accelerate thought leadership and recognition. So have you talked about the people that are involved to really elevate that thought leadership and build some recognition? So now if any of you haven't spoke to Monica or Jackson recently or ever, now you have a face with the name, you know a little bit about their background. There's a little bit of credibility involved, even though they're not delivering most of the content. We're still helping build that brand awareness and accomplish some of those things. Is everybody with me? You see how that's working together? So then also activate your team. Do you have people on the outside that are going to help you boost this? Not just the people on the inside, but you have allies out there. I have Tony P that's on. We help each other all the time. Whenever we see things and events that we have, we're continuously helping each other in partnership. We both have big networks. We do that with the Chicagoland Chamber and other organizations. So activate your team. What's your message? What's your date and time, right? You got your plan. And what is the duration? How long are we going to run? This one's running 1 hour and we're at 27 minutes, right? So we're keeping a pace. Okay. And then what you want to do is activate your network of organizations, partners, affiliates, people that are going to help you. And then where are they going to contribute? Are they going to help by emailing? Are they in part of social? Is it a sponsor that's going to offer some pay-per-click? You decide how they're going to play, but map that out before you even think about kicking off that campaign. All right, these are just some key elements. Now let's talk about registration. So all of you had to register to get here, right? So we have email addresses and some other information that we collected. So now all of a sudden, we want to make sure that we have the content, the right landing page. I don't know if you guys like the landing page. We changed it up this time. We wanted to show you a little bit different look and style. I'd love for someone to go, that was a great landing page. And then what questions did you ask? What questions did you ask, or, you know, to the person that's coming in? What do you need to know about the audience? Right? Think about that. What do you need to know about the audience? Step 4, webinar development. This is where Jackson and his team come in terms of building that webinar. So Jackson is part, not just, even though he's not content, he participates in building the slides, because many times I have to know exactly what's going on with those slides in the webinar. He has to know what's going on because there's other sequences that come into play. Polling questions. So when Jackson's team is part of that production, he's going through all those polling questions and making sure that they're set up right, making sure we can deliver them, making sure the timing with the slides is right. We have a sequence with every 6 to 7 to 10 minutes, we're asking questions. He's coordinating the handouts that you receive, the closing sequence, the messaging you get afterwards, the handouts you get where he takes you. Even though a lot of that's marketing, you have to have a technical person program that in. And are you doing surveys at the end? What do surveys look like? So Jackson, do you want to jump on and speak to any of this? Because I know you set up a ton of it, even though we only have a minute or two in this segment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think just building slides is way more important than people think it is. I mean, people are like, it's the guide of the content, but it's also what drives the entire webinar. Like this, all my notes are in here, you know, all my cues to do different things to come on. I have like a little note in here right now to jump on. And here we are. You know what I mean? It keeps the pace of the webinar and it keeps it moving. And I think people don't see it as that a lot of the time. They just see it as a visual aid to help, but it honestly helps the flow of the webinar. And then with the polling questions, a lot of times, we'll team up on things like that. So he'll go in and then I go in to adjust any typos because he's always, moving fast. And, same with the handouts. I double check everything. We always do that. We go through a process of double checking everything that the other person does because we support each other in that way. It's a team. It's a team that's helping to build it. And like Dean said, with the surveys are pretty much just like a polling question, but they happen at the end. And that's where you can collect all your feedback going, like, what did you like? What should we do better? What would you like to hear from us next? And I think those are something that a lot of people don't take advantage of nearly as much.
Right. Thank you, Jackson. And the surveys are part of the platform included too. So again, when you're looking at platforms, you want to check those boxes and make that determination. So far, I just want to check in with the audience. What you've heard up to this point, what is the thing that you were like, oh, I'm going to think about that differently? Because we have some experts that are here. We have some novices that are here. So tell me a little bit. I'm just curious what you're picking up from this or what you're getting from this. What is the 1, 2, or 3, or 4 things that are resonating? And don't forget, if this is your first time playing with us, remember, we give out gift cards at the end for people that participate the most. Oh, Noreen, slides still matter, right? Well, and content too. So, some people replace slides with visual whiteboards and things like that. So let's see, how about Leonard? Not one size fits all solutions. That's good, I like that. Let's see, let's hear from a few other people. Jim is telling us that content matters. Yeah, the content marketing should fit the audience you're trying to attract. Becky likes building digital thought leadership. Okay, did everybody hear that I'm giving out prizes to those that engage the most? So there's an incentive to participate. How about that? Participate and engagement. Now, when we think about this, whether we're on the audience side or we're on the delivery side, that engagement is really a really big thing in today's world, right? Because a lot of people, because of technology and everything else, we lose touch, we disconnect, we detach. So really that engagement piece is huge. Michelle says it takes a team, and I love that. And it doesn't always have to be the people that are working directly with you. Don't be afraid to ask for help through the process. Yes, and I, like Ernesto said, thinking in advance of the potential problems. Now, you could Google common problems that happen in a webinar and actually make a checklist. I think we've experienced so many that we're on autopilot. We're on autopilot when we go through it, but we still have a pre-flight checklist. Actually, I was gonna look. We have pre-flight checklists and scripts that we do, and sequence of who's coming on when and what we're doing. So we still have a pre-flight checklist, and we still go through all that. Glenn says a webinar really needs a lot of planning and detail. So don't just like show up and hopefully everything's going to be okay. So make sure, and that's why we wanted to give you these steps. So let's keep moving through this a little bit. Good contribution, everybody. Okay, as we get into marketing, and this is more Monica's department, but a lot of times, I'm gonna have her explain a little bit, jump on and explain a little bit about sort of the marketing sequence that went on here. Yes, Glenn, in the handout section, the checklist, yeah, actually, we have a kit that you can get that we'll get to you afterwards. So Monica, there you are. How you doing?
Hey, how are you? Good.
I lost you there for a minute.
Just adjusting myself slightly.
There you go. Okay, so with that being said, you look a little foggy in Boca, but we'll take your audio for sure. So tell us a little bit like what behind the scenes, like in terms of how you guys went about marketing this, and just to give people some idea, some of the pieces that go behind marketing.
So I think, setting up a timeline in terms of, when you guys are going to actually be having the event and giving yourself enough time to promote that on social. So utilizing all your social media channels, utilizing your network. There's so many great features that social media now offers, from, stories to polls. So just really digging into that and utilizing all those different pieces. Your email database, that's number one, making sure you're shooting out emails and letting everyone know about the event. A lot of the social media pages have the cool banner, the banners that we have up ahead, the headers that we utilize, and we created a graphic that let all of our network and people are coming onto our pages that we're having this webinar. That's perfect real estate to really utilize. And then, of course, advertising, boosting those ads and just letting people know. And as Dean mentioned, activating your network is number one. And then, testing the audience and testing that message, and then making any slight adjustments needed in order to, really target the audience that we're looking to bring in.
Yeah, thank you on that. So with that, did you hear what she said about testing the message? So there's a couple different ways to do that. You can do that in email on A/B testing. You can do that by simply watching how this post does against another post. And then that might help you make a decision of what to promote out. So if you have $100 to work with and you put out some free social media and you put $10 behind each post, that might tell you how to spend the rest of the money. So again, that testing the message, measuring the success, and making those adjustments along the way can really be key. Monica, another thing we do that I think that's important is we watch who's registering. So watch along the way who's registering. Are you attracting the audience that you hope to have? At the very beginning, we talked about target, right? Setting up the right campaign to the right target, aligning all the messages. And so what you want to make sure is that on registration, that's going to be really a first clue, is if you have the wrong people, right? So
Agreed.
So Glenn's asking what comes first, detail of audience or marketing resources. I think you do them both as part of the, you want to identify that target up front, because otherwise you don't know what marketing resources to use, where they exist, or how to say things to them. So that target is one of the most important things. Remember, what are you trying to close? What is the thing you're trying to get the audience to buy? And what is what is the perfect client or the perfect customer in the audience for you? Does that make sense, Glenn? Good. All right, Monica, thank you so much for that. And again, if you guys deal with us on the marketing side, you'll get to meet Monica a little more on that side of things.
Thanks, guys.
So with that, so the next step 6 is registration review. So what does that mean? Well, this is a critical step. We just talked about know your audience. And so when you're looking at the registration report and you're printing that off weekly, make sure you're like, oh, that's not who I expected in here. Why am I attracting all these people? I must be saying something wrong. So now all of a sudden you're like, did I get what I expected? And then, now all of a sudden you have a different audience than you planned. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say, but should you adjust the presentation based on who is now in the room? So even though I looked and saw all of you that were registered, I'm also asking polling questions so that I know that I have some experts in the room. I have some novices in the room. I don't have anybody in the room that's never done a webcast or a webinar. So that's cool. So now I could maybe advance the discussion and not be so elementary. Does that make sense? So you always want to pay attention to that. And then obviously always confirm the autoresponders that are going out and the messages. You should have received 3 messages based on when you registered, you received one a week ago, a day ago, and a couple hours ago. So again, that's usually our sequence, but again, you might have to dial in a sequence that works best for your audience. All right, then it's webinar delivery day. So what do, right? You do a test dry run. So you make sure that everybody has an agreement to have a good time, to have fun, because again, something could happen. Make sure you breathe, make sure you relax a little bit. Always do a dry run if you can. Like even though we basically knew what we were going to cover here, and we had done one similar to this before, we literally jumped on beforehand and sort of agreed when Monica was going to come on, when Jackson was going to come on, and we didn't know, like, Monica's, remote in Boca. We didn't know how good the bandwidth was going to go. So as a contingency, I was able, I'm able to pick up that segment if something were to happen where she couldn't come on all the way. So you always have to have that. So do a dry run and just, plan through things. And some of it, I'm going to go back to Jackson. I don't know if you notice, he's an improviser out of Second City. I think a lot of this has to do with being able to think on your feet and improv. So if you could have somebody that's part of the operation that has some of that improv background, that really helps, because they're a little more in flow and relaxed and not as much rigid and script. We deal a lot in banking, finance, insurance, commercial real estate is a little more relaxed. Real estate people are a little more relaxed, but depending on the industry that you're pushing things out with, a lot of times, you need to have people that are a good mix as a team that are working on it. I mean, if you have all CFOs and accountants that are on, they're going to have a little tougher time recovering if something goes wrong, or if something shifts, or if something changes. So you want to have a good blend of people on that team. Check your control panel. Make sure that you are aware of all the readings that you're getting on the control panel. Like I said, you can see on this sample of the dashboard, you can see the attentiveness. I can see that 50% of you now are attentive and looking at the slides, and you're with me on this. The other 50% are probably listening to me, I hope, but you're checking other things, right? So you have emails up, you have other content up, and so that's okay. I'm just saying that helps you gauge and read the audience of what they can see. So if you notice, one of the things on here is we don't have hand raising activated. But if I wanted to, I can activate raise hands. Can you guys click on raising the hand there? See how many people can find it, how fast. I'll see if I could have, there we go. Roger found it, Michelle found it, Noreen found it. Yeah, this is the control panel for GoToWebinar as an example. Let's see, Jennifer, I have two Jennifers, both Jennifers found it. Albert found it, Al found it. There you go. Okay, and then I can lower all your hands. There you go. And I can actually turn off the option. So things like that, all of a sudden, my attentiveness went from 50% to 72%. So I got some of you back on the platform, on the screen. So again, there's ways that you can get to talk to the audience, to engage back and forth. You're never going to get 100% either. So I'd be shocked if you had 100%, unless you're running a contest where people were winning a lot of money and they had to look on the screen to pick a number or something. Let's see, show screen and camera. Yeah, just make sure you can turn those controls. I think I've shown you that. Unmute, mute, unmute, mute. Just make sure you're familiar with turning things on and off. Record, make sure that recordings are set ahead of time too. Okay, hopefully everybody's picking up on this and learning something. Again, you're all at different levels. Conversion tips, pace yourself, right? Make sure you do a practice dry run. When you're converting, you want to make sure that you're building rapport. So when you think about this, and Michelle, I'll get to that question. That's a really good question. When we think about this, pace yourself in terms of how you're closing, what you're asking them for, what you're trying to close to. It's conversational. Pretend you're on a sales meeting. And one thing I tell people is, you know what? Pretend you're sitting across from your ideal client, your ideal prospect. Money's on the line. You want to build rapport. You want to build a relationship and connect. And a lot of times that trust building and that connection is going to really help people really step over the line when you ask for the sale or you ask for the next thing, so that because they trust you. And you know what? They're like willing to talk to you, at least have one more conversation. And then it's up to your sales process to take over. Hint to the offer every 6 minutes if you can. So that means weaving that into the content throughout, making sure that you're pre-closing, if you will. And then at the end, just have a clear close. Now, Michelle asked a great question. How is attentiveness calculated on the webinar window? So if you're taking notes on your computer, it will show that you're not attentive. So so if you have your word up and you're typing while and you only have one screen, it's going to show that our screen is not sitting on top. So that's how that works. So that's how it calculates. And again, we realize that it's just, a lot of times what we want to do is see how many people we can get to actually look on the screen. Now you'll notice the whole time I've had these slides, I had forward progress and social jack on the bottom. So there's some brand recognition, almost like subliminal television that you want to have, that you're doing, that you're putting that in there. You'll notice that a lot of the slide examples contain some of our content too. So, so we do some of that for brand recognition along the way. But that's a great question, Michelle. Keep asking those good questions. All right, Jackson, start calculating our winners. I want to give out 3 gift cards today. Look at that. I never give out 3 gift cards. Okay. So webinar marketing lifecycle follow-up. This is the key. So in here, when we think about this, make sure that you give the deliverables within 4 to 24 hours. So make sure, you're going to get a email after this from GoToWebinar that's going to have some links in there that are going to get you to some cool kits. Okay, I'm going to send all of you a link to a kit where you can download not just this checklist, but we actually have some other checklists in there and some other cool things to walk you through building an influencer-driven event. This is B2B or B2C, mostly B2B, but it's an influencer event marketing kit. Okay, so you're going to get that, and it works for both live events, which are far and few between, versus webinar events. Okay, so you're going to get both versions of that. Does everybody want one of those? I just want to see who's listening. Okay, Ernesto wants one, I know that. Noreen wants one, I know that. Michael, Anthony, even, oh yeah, Scott, Glenn, okay, good. Glenn even said, yes, please. Let's see. Karen, Michelle, yes. Okay, so we'll make sure all of you get that. And we'll make sure, and then we'll make sure that you also get a copy of the recording. So let's bring this home. Contact, no contact to non-attendees, you have to decide. You'll look at the attendees, you'll look at the non-attendees. How are you going to communicate with them? So, and then drip marketing, what happens after that? So GoToWebinar quits, and now all of a sudden, Monica and the team are going to look at HubSpot and say, is HubSpot set up to do a communication with them afterwards? And then is Monica and some of her team members going to call and contact you afterwards based on, how you showed up? And then we also track who listens to the recording. Okay. Now this last part, I'm a big systems person. This last part is probably one of the most important things. At the end, you want to document. You want to document what went well, what drops or mistakes happened, what are things that you didn't expect. Expect the unexpected, right? But make sure you make notes. Even as we're operating here, I'm making notes. The entire team on the back end is making notes. I guarantee you production, Jackson is making notes and going, next time, we're going to do this, okay? What improvements, what would we make? What changes would we make next time? And then next steps. What are the next steps? Do we do another one? Do we do it the same way? Do we change things up? So think about that. All right. And then I'm going to take a few questions and we're going to announce winners. Jackson, give me, oh, Jackson, I think you did. Did you give me 3 winners? I want to make sure. All right. So again, if you guys want to learn more, there's a lot of free education at socialjack.com. That's where all the education is. Okay. So let's see, what program do we connect the webinar to? I think you're asking like, is that like the CRM one? Like when I mentioned HubSpot, I'm not following the question there. Oh, here we go. I forgot we had this in here. You guys can actually get the eventinfluencerprogram.com/blueprint. We'll also send this link to you, so don't worry. We'll also send this link to you. But this is the Event Influencer Blueprint. So we have this all packaged up and ready to go. We'll also send that to you here. So let's take some questions. Yeah, the CRM is, we like HubSpot, but honestly, most any CRM has import-export capabilities. Tony asked a great question. Okay, and I'm going to speak to the pandemic on this. So, what are the best days of the week and best time of day to host a virtual event? Well, you have to think about time zones. So you heard I mentioned the UK on here. So a lot of times we have a decent audience overseas in the UK. So we try to hold ours a tiny bit earlier. But we have to think of our California peeps. We have a ton of business in California. We also have East Coast people. So we like the 10 a.m. slot to 2 p.m. slot is usually the most effective for business. If you're trying to reach people after hours or end of the day or consumers, we usually find that, 5 to as late as 9, again, depending on time zones. Think about local time zones or who you're inviting. Now, days of the week is a surprise because, there's the days of the week to host the event and the days of the week to market the event. So we've had some surprising, since COVID, we've had some surprising webinars that we hold on Saturdays. We hold on those times that I told you. But in terms of communicating with people to get a high open rate and return rate, and if you're targeting business owners or people that are business minded or B2B space, Sunday evenings, now watch, everyone's going to email blast on Sunday evening, has been sort of a secret shot. And I'm talking about like 6 p.m., not like 10 p.m. But a lot of people that are in business are sitting at their laptop and they're planning. They're planning for the next thing. So they're planning for their week. They're planning for the next day. They're sort of in that business mindset. And if you strike the right audience with the right message at that point, those Sunday, early evenings actually, hold some good water in terms of return. We get good open rates and click-through rates. All right, so no more questions. So what did you guys think? Did we, let me just pop up a quick, and I'll announce our winners here. So in terms of everybody that's in the audience, and you can click on multiple of these, I believe, is I have a polling question up. So would you want to maybe talk to Monica about putting more targeted people in events? So look at the polling questions here. Would you like to maybe talk to us about producing virtual events? Would you like to talk to us about digital thought leadership and brand building? Some of you have some initiatives where you want to get to the top of Google. So does that interest you? Content, right? So all of a sudden you're thinking about, well, I might be a little weaker on the content side. So while you guys are voting, we're going to go ahead and announce the winners here, and then we'll let you out a couple minutes early. So we'll let you continue to vote. All right. So hopefully you guys like Starbucks because we're doing Starbucks gift cards. So we have 3 winners. We have Scott Marcotte. Hopefully it's Marcotte, not Marcotte. Roger Isley and Michelle Henley are 3 engagement winners today. So congratulations to you guys on that. Woohoo! All right. Now let's see. We'll go ahead. Most of you have voted on the poll there, and again, you can always hit us up afterwards too if you think of things. But Again, I just want to thank everybody because because of you, you asked the great questions. You tell us what you want to hear about. We'll also be curious. We have a whole new series coming out at the beginning of the year. We'll be curious to hear what's going to help you learn. And I think, again, no matter what happens with pandemics or presidents, I think we have to take control of our own businesses and our own thought leadership, and it's our responsibility to create the best digital footprint for ourselves and our brands as possible. So with that being said, I think that's one of those things where we have to take things into our own hands. It's personal responsibility and a business responsibility for us to do that. So hopefully you guys learned a ton. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Jackson, Monica, you want to come on and say goodbye to everybody, and then we'll let them rock and roll. I always like to say that, rock and roll. So what did you guys think about the program, Monica?
I thought it was great. You always, share a lot of good insight that I sometimes don't even know on my end. So I always learn a lot through these workshops that you put together. Jackson,
what about you?
I thought it was great, and I feel like we, within an hour is not a lot of time really when it comes to sharing knowledge on this particular topic, because this is really only covering the marketing. But I thought it was great. I thought we, shared a lot of great tips to get people started. If you're producing your fifth or sixth webinar, you're just getting started, I think this will really help you out. And make sure to check out the handouts that we'll send you after the webinar.
Yeah. So good call. So make sure you check that email. It might go into your spam folder. It's coming from the GoToWebinar platform from my email address. And then afterwards, if you want any help, we'll reach out to those that indicated. But with that being said, from all of us here at Forward Progress and the Social Jack team, we just want to send out a heartfelt thanks, and please stay safe out there and watch out for one another and help each other out. So with that being said, we'll see you all on the next webcast. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.